But due to the sacrifices Idahoans have made in the past 2 months and the care they have shown for their neighbors, I am hopeful that we pass the worst of COVID-19 in our state. If we all continue to routinely practice measures to prevent its spread. Today I am pleased to announce that we have met the criteria to enter Stage 3 of our Idaho Rebounds plan to safely and responsibly open our economy. Beginning Saturday, bars can open their doors as long as protocols to protect workers and the public are followed. We moved up the opening of bars 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks early from Stage 4 to Stage 3. Only out-of-state travelers from areas of high spread should quarantine for 14 days entering Idaho. This will help our vital tourism and hospitality industry while protecting our citizens. Gatherings of up to 50 people can occur where appropriate physical distancing and precautionary measures are observed. In addition, after consultation with movie theater operators and our public health team, we decided to move up the opening of movie theaters by 2 weeks from Stage 4 to Stage 3 beginning Saturday, again, as long as protocols are followed. Over the duration of Stage 3, vulnerable Idahoans should be diligent to minimize exposure to transmissible moments. Employees should continue to telework wherever possible, and employers should continue to return employees to on-site work in phases. Visits to senior living facilities and congregate facilities are still prohibited in order to protect workers and the individuals in those facilities. Large venues and sporting events remain closed until Stage 4. Idaho was one of the last states with a confirmed case. Idaho was one of the first states with a staged reopening plan. On May 1st, 90% of Idaho businesses were able to open their doors. On May 16th, 95% of Idaho businesses will be able to open their doors. And on Saturday, nearly all Idaho businesses will be able to open their doors. We have been able to protect the health and safety of Idahoans while allowing our economy to open up safely. Every step of the way, we have followed direction from President Trump and the public health experts at all levels. Idaho's staged reopening plan and our handling of federal relief funds in prioritizing support for small businesses has repeatedly drawn praise from President Trump, Vice President Pence, and White House officials. We have distributed tens of millions of dollars in grants to help thousands of Idaho small businesses. We have helped thousands of Idaho small businesses obtain PPE so that they can open and help the public feel safe. We can be proud of all of that, but our battle with COVID-19 is far from over. We are better off in Idaho than elsewhere, not because the problem doesn't exist here, but because we're doing a good job of protecting our families, neighbors, and friends.